He was the most feared man in Chicago, a millionaire who controlled lives with a single phone call. But one night, under a freezing highway bridge, a 7-year-old barefoot girl stood in front of him and said something no one had ever dared to say. "Don't make my mother cry, or you'll have to go through me first." Behind her, a baby slept in a broken box. A little boy struggled to breathe. And the woman he trusted with his own daughter had been starving herself for months. That night, power meant nothing. Money meant nothing. Because for the first time in his life, Salvatore Moretti felt ashamed. If stories about love, sacrifice, and second chances mean something to you, take a moment to subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. Salvatore Moretti was not a man who asked questions. He gave orders. He built empires. He made problems disappear. And in his world, people didn't lie to him. At least, that's what he believed. For 2 years, Elena worked in his mansion in Lincoln Park. Every morning at exactly 6, she walked through the back door, quiet, invisible, just like all the help. And every night at 7, she left the same way. In between, she did everything. She cooked. She cleaned. She took care of Bella, his 4-year-old daughter. Bella had lost her mother too young. And Elena, somehow, filled that emptiness. She wasn't just a maid. She became the warmth in that house. The one who braided Bella's hair in the morning. The one who sang soft lullabies when nightmares came. The one who stayed patient, even when grief made a little girl cry for hours. And yet, Salvatore never really saw her. To him, she was just part of the system. A name on a payroll sheet. A worker who did her job well. Nothing more. Until one morning, something felt off. Salvatore sat in his office upstairs, reviewing contracts worth millions. The sunlight poured through the tall glass windows, lighting up the marble floors below. His eyes drifted, not to the papers, but to the kitchen. Elena stood there, feeding Bella breakfast. Same routine. Same quiet presence. But this time, something made him pause. Bella giggled, swinging her little legs under the table. "Elena, you're too slow," she teased. Elena smiled, that same gentle smile. But her hand, it trembled. Not slightly. Not something you could ignore. It shook, like her body was struggling to keep control. Salvatore leaned forward in his chair. He noticed her fingers. Cracked. Red. Split open in places, like they had been exposed to something harsh for too long. There were tiny lines of dried blood across her knuckles. He frowned. Chicago winters were cold, sure. But inside his mansion, it was warm enough to walk barefoot. So why did her hands look like that? Then he noticed something else. Her coat. That same old coat she wore every single day. Inside the house. While cooking. While cleaning. Even now, standing in a heated kitchen, she kept it wrapped tight around her body. Salvatore realized something uncomfortable. In 2 years, he had never asked her why. He had never asked where she lived. Never asked if she had family. Nothing. Bella suddenly reached out and grabbed her hand. "Elena, you're bleeding." Elena quickly pulled back, hiding it behind her. "It's nothing, sweetheart," she said softly. "Just the cold." That smile again. Perfect. Practiced. Empty. Salvatore sat back in his chair, gripping his pen. He told himself it didn't matter. People had problems. That wasn't his concern. He had bigger things to deal with. Business. Territories. Money. So he looked away. And for 3 weeks, he kept looking away. Until the morning everything broke. It was 9:47. Elena stood at the stove, warming milk. Her movements were slow. Too slow. Her other hand gripped the counter, like she needed it just to stay upright. Her legs trembled. Her breathing, uneven. The pot tilted. Milk spilled across the stove. She didn't react. Her eyes, blank. Then suddenly, her knees gave out, and her body collapsed, hard against the marble floor. The sound echoed through the entire house. Upstairs, Salvatore froze. Then he moved. Fast. Down the stairs. Through the hallway. Into the kitchen. And what he saw stopped him cold. Elena lay on the floor, completely still. Milk spread around her like a white shadow. Her face pale. Too pale. For a moment, he thought, no. He dropped beside her, grabbing her wrist. There was a pulse. Weak. Barely there. He lifted her. And something felt wrong. She weighed nothing. Not like a grown woman. Not like someone who worked 12 hours a day. It was like holding a body that had been slowly disappearing. His arms tightened instinctively. How long? He muttered under his breath. But there was no answer. He carried her to the living room, laying her down gently. Her head rolled to the side, lifeless. Salvatore pulled out his phone. Dr. Webb. No. Emergency. No explanation. No delay. He ended the call and stood there, looking at her. For the first time, really looking. The woman who had taken care of his daughter. The woman he never bothered to know. And for the first time in years, Salvatore Moretti felt something unfamiliar creeping into his chest. Not anger. Not control. Fear. And deep down, a question he couldn't ignore anymore. What had he missed? And how bad was it really? Dr. Webb arrived faster than expected. 45 minutes. But to Salvatore, it felt like hours. The house was silent except for the faint, uneven sound of Elena's breathing. Salvatore stood nearby, arms crossed, watching every rise and fall of her chest like it was the only thing keeping the world from collapsing. When the doctor finally stepped into the room, he didn't waste a second. He set his bag down, knelt beside Elena, and began examining her with practiced precision. His hands moved quickly, but his face slowly changed. Salvatore noticed it. That shift. Not panic, not confusion. Something heavier. Concern. Real concern. Dr. Webb checked her pulse first, then her blood pressure. He adjusted the cuff twice before it fit around her thin arm. Then he lifted her eyelids, shining a small light into her eyes. He paused. Just for a second. Then continued. He took her hand next, turning it over, studying the cracked skin, the deep splits along her fingers. His thumb brushed lightly over the surface, as if confirming something he already suspected. Then he pressed gently against her rib cage. 1, 2, 3. Salvatore watched closely. The doctor's jaw tightened. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Dr. Webb stood up. "Walk with me," he said quietly. They stepped into the hallway, the door closing softly behind them. Salvatore waited. The doctor took a slow breath, then looked directly into his eyes. "She's severely malnourished." The words landed hard. "Stage 3, the doctor continued. "Her body has been breaking itself down, muscle, fat, everything, just to stay alive." Salvatore's expression didn't change. But inside, something shifted. "That's not possible," he said flatly. "I pay her well." Dr. Webb didn't respond right away. Instead, he continued. "Her core temperature is below normal. Chronic hypothermia. And these," he gestured toward Elena's hands, "these are not from one exposure to cold. This is repeated. Over time." Salvatore felt his chest tighten. Her fingers show signs of past frostbite. Not recent, but not old enough to ignore either. The hallway suddenly felt colder, quieter, like the walls themselves were listening. The doctor stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm going to ask you something," he said. "And I need the truth." Salvatore nodded once. "Is she living on the streets?" The question hit him like a punch. "No," he said immediately. "That's impossible." His tone was sharp, almost defensive. "I pay her $2,500 a month. That's more than enough for a decent place." Dr. Webb studied him carefully. Not accusing, just searching. Then he gave a small nod. "She needs food," he said. "Real food. Consistently. Or next time, she won't wake up." He handed over a prescription and walked toward the door. No lecture. No judgment. Just facts. And then he was gone. Salvatore stood alone in the hallway. The paper in his hand felt heavier than it should. Through the slightly open door, he could see Elena lying on the couch, motionless. That same question echoed in his mind. Is she living on the streets? He wanted to dismiss it, laugh it off. But something stopped him. A simple realization. In 2 years, he had never asked her a single question about her life. Not one. 2 days later, Elena returned to work. Like nothing had happened. Same time. Same routine. Same quiet footsteps through the house. She wore the same coat, buttoned tightly up to her neck. She moved through the kitchen, preparing breakfast, brushing Bella's hair, setting everything in place like she always did. If anyone didn't know better, they'd think nothing was wrong. But Salvatore noticed everything now. The way she held her hands close to her body. The way she flinched when something rough brushed against her skin. The way she avoided his eyes, every single time. She was hiding something. He was sure of it. And this time, he wasn't going to ignore it. Saturday came cold and gray. The kind of day that made even the city feel tired. Elena finished early that afternoon. At exactly 3 o'clock, she stepped into the small staff room near the kitchen. A few minutes later, she came out wearing her usual clothes. A thin sweater, faded pants, and that same coat. In her hand, a plastic bag. It wasn't big, but it was full. Salvatore watched from upstairs. His eyes followed her as she walked out through the back garden, past the gate, and onto the street. She didn't look back. Not once. Something in his chest tightened. A decision formed, quiet but firm. Today, he would find out the truth. He grabbed his keys and moved quickly. Dante glanced up as he passed. "Everything okay?" he asked. Salvatore didn't answer. He was already gone. Outside, the air hit sharp and cold. He slid into his SUV and started the engine just as Elena reached the bus stop ahead. She stood there alone, shoulders slightly hunched, the plastic bag hanging from her hand. A bus pulled up. She climbed in. The doors closed. Salvatore followed. He kept his distance, just far enough to stay unnoticed. The bus moved through the city, and slowly, everything began to change. The clean streets faded. The buildings grew older, rougher. The sidewalks cracked. The air felt different. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. This wasn't her world, or at least, it wasn't supposed to be. The bus continued south, block after block, further away from everything he knew. Finally, it stopped. Elena stepped off. Salvatore parked a distance away, watching. She stood there for a moment, then waited. Another bus came. She got on again. And this time, it went deeper. Much deeper. The kind of places that didn't appear in polite conversations. The kind of places even his own people avoided unless necessary. Salvatore felt something uneasy settle in his chest. By the time she stepped off again, The sun was already fading. She didn't hesitate. She just started walking, like she knew exactly where she was going. Salvatore got out of the car, pulled his hood up, and followed, step by step, through broken streets, past empty lots, through silence that felt heavy, almost watching. Then she turned a corner, and stopped. Ahead of her, a massive concrete overpass loomed. Traffic roared above. Below, shadows swallowed everything. Elena looked around carefully. Left, right, checking, making sure no one was watching. Salvatore pressed himself against a wall, holding his breath. Then she moved. She stepped into the darkness beneath the bridge and disappeared. Salvatore stood there for a moment, his heart beating louder than the traffic above. He had seen a lot in his life, more than most men could handle. But right now, standing at the edge of that darkness, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hesitation. Then slowly, he stepped forward, and followed her inside. The darkness under the bridge swallowed the light behind him. Salvatore moved slowly, each step careful, controlled. The air felt heavier here, thick with cold, damp, and something else, something that didn't belong in the world he knew. At first, he saw nothing. Just shadows, concrete pillars, scattered trash. Then his eyes adjusted, and everything changed. Against the far wall, there was something. A shape. Not natural. Not random. A structure made of flattened cardboard, carefully arranged. A blue tarp stretched above it, tied to rusted metal, sagging under its own weight. Torn blankets piled into one corner. A shelter, if you could even call it that. And inside, his breath caught. 3 children. The oldest sat near the entrance, on top of an overturned bucket. A girl, small, thin, maybe 7 years old. Her posture was straight, alert, like she had been waiting, guarding. Her hair was uneven, roughly cut. Her bare feet rested on the cold ground, red and swollen from the freezing air. She didn't move. She didn't fidget. She just watched. Behind her, curled into the corner, was a little boy. Maybe 5. His small body shook slightly as he held onto a worn notebook like it meant everything. A dry cough escaped him. Then another. And another. Each one deeper than the last. Salvatore felt it in his chest. That sound. It wasn't normal. It wasn't safe. And then, his eyes moved further. To the far corner, where a small white box sat. At first, it looked like trash. But it wasn't. It was a styrofoam container, lined with crumpled paper. And inside it, a baby. Tiny. Still. Wrapped in something thin. Salvatore leaned slightly, trying to see clearer. And then he realized what it was. Not a blanket. A coat. The same coat Elena wore every single day. The one she never took off. The one everyone noticed, but no one questioned. At night, that coat wasn't keeping her warm. It was keeping her baby alive. The truth hit him so hard, it almost knocked the air out of his lungs. Before he could even process it. Movement behind him. He turned slightly. Elena. She rushed forward, almost running, straight into the shelter. The children reacted instantly. The girl stood up. The boy looked up. And in the next second, Elena dropped to her knees, pulling them all into her arms. She held them tight. Too tight. Like she had been holding herself together all day, just to reach this moment. And then she broke. Her shoulders shook. Silent tears streamed down her face. No sound. Just pain. The kind of pain that had been buried for too long. The girl pulled away first. She reached for a plastic container nearby and handed it to her mother. "Mama," I saved some water, she said softly. Her voice was calm. Too calm for a child. Elena wiped her face quickly, nodding. Then she reached into the plastic bag she had carried from the mansion. She pulled out a food container. Salvatore recognized it instantly. It was the meal she prepared for herself every day. The one she always said she would eat later. The one that always disappeared. Now he knew where it went. Elena opened it and began dividing the food. Carefully. Gently. Like every bite mattered. She fed the boy first. Small spoonfuls. Slowly, between his coughing. Then the girl, who ate quickly, efficiently, like she had learned not to waste time. And then the baby. Tiny portions, mashed and given with careful fingers. Elena watched them. Every bite. Every swallow. Her eyes soft, full of love. Full of relief. And through it all, she didn't eat. Not once. Not a single bite. Salvatore felt his legs weaken slightly. 2 years. For 2 years, she had been doing this. Working in his home. Feeding his daughter. Then coming here. And feeding her own children with what she never allowed herself to eat. He swallowed hard. Something heavy settled deep in his chest. Guilt. Real guilt. He shifted his weight slightly. And his foot came down on something sharp. A crack echoed loudly through the space. Glass. Broken. The sound cut through everything. The girl's head snapped toward him instantly. Her eyes locked onto the shadows where he stood. Sharp. Focused. She didn't hesitate. Didn't look confused. Didn't look afraid. She saw him. And she knew. In one smooth movement, she stood up. Stepped forward. Positioning herself between him and her family. Her small body, standing like a shield. Behind her, the boy froze. The baby stirred slightly. Elena turned. And when she saw him, everything drained from her face. Her lips parted, trembling. Mr. Moretti. Her voice barely came out. She scrambled to her feet, quickly picking up the baby, holding her close. Her entire body shook. "Please," she whispered, stepping forward. "Please don't fire me." Salvatore stepped out of the shadows. Into the dim light. He didn't say anything. He couldn't. Not yet. Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I know I should have told you. I know." Her voice broke. "But this job, it's all we have. If I lose it, we have nothing." Her words came fast now. Desperate. Raw. "Please, don't take this away from us." And then, she dropped to her knees. Right there on the cold ground. Begging. The woman who never asked for anything. Who gave everything. Now begging, just to survive. Salvatore felt something twist deep inside him. Something he couldn't control. He opened his mouth. But before he could speak, the girl moved. She stepped forward. Placed herself directly in front of her mother. Her hand reached back, stopping Elena from bowing any further. "Mama, don't." Her voice was steady, firm. She turned, and faced him. Straight on. Barefoot. Cold. Hungry. But unshaken. Her eyes met his. Not with fear. Not with respect. But with something far stronger. Defiance. "If you're going to make my mother cry," she said quietly, "then you'll have to go through me first." The words hung in the freezing air. Salvatore stood still. Completely still. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel powerful. He felt small. The wind moved through the bridge, cold and sharp. But he didn't notice it. Because in front of him, a 7-year-old girl had just drawn a line. And somehow, He knew this moment was about to change everything. Salvatore didn't move. The girl's words stayed in the air between them, sharp and unshaken, like something carved in stone. For a long moment, no one spoke. The roar of traffic above filled the silence, but down there, beneath the bridge, it felt like time had stopped. He looked at her. Really looked. Her feet were bare against the freezing ground. Her hands were clenched at her sides, small but steady. There was a scar running along her arm, rough, uneven, the kind that didn't come from a simple accident. And her eyes. They weren't the eyes of a child. They were tired, old, like they had seen too much, too soon. "What's your name?" Salvatore asked quietly. The girl didn't hesitate. "Amelia." Her voice didn't shake. Not even a little. Salvatore nodded slowly. Behind her, Elena was still trembling, clutching the baby tightly against her chest. "Please," she whispered again, her voice barely holding together. "I'll work harder. I'll do anything. Just don't take this job away from me." Salvatore's jaw tightened. He wasn't thinking about her job anymore. He was thinking about everything he had just seen. Everything he had ignored. Amelia didn't move aside. She stayed exactly where she was, watching him carefully, like she was trying to read what kind of man stood in front of her. "You don't have to beg," Salvatore said finally. Elena looked up, confused. "What?" "You don't have to beg," he repeated, softer this time. But Amelia didn't relax. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "People like you always say that," she said. There was no disrespect in her tone, just truth. Salvatore felt that one. It landed deeper than anything else. He crouched down slowly, lowering himself to her level. The cold from the ground seeped through his clothes, but he didn't care. "Then don't believe what I say," he told her. "Watch what I do." Amelia studied him, carefully, like she was weighing every word, every breath. Then she spoke again. "My mother works all day for you," she said. 12 hours. Her voice stayed calm, but every word carried weight. "She gives all her food to us. Every day. She tells you she'll eat later, but she doesn't." Elena shook her head slightly. "Amelia, stop." But the girl didn't stop. "She doesn't sleep," Amelia continued. "I hear her at night. She cries when she thinks we're asleep." The words came out simple, but they cut deep. Salvatore felt something tighten in his chest, a pressure he wasn't used to. "Do you know why we're here?" Amelia asked. He didn't answer. He couldn't. "Because her money isn't enough anymore." Salvatore's eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" Amelia reached into her shirt, carefully, like she was pulling out something important. She took out a plastic bag, wrapped tight, layer after layer, protected. She held it for a moment, then slowly unfolded it. Inside, papers. Old, worn, but kept safe. "My mother says the truth needs proof," Amelia said quietly. "So I keep it." She placed the papers on the ground between them. Salvatore leaned forward slightly. Receipts. Handwritten. Neat. Each one showing a payment. The first few, normal. The amount he expected. But then, the numbers changed. Dropped. Less than half. Salvatore felt his stomach turn. 4 months, Amelia said. That's when it started. Elena's breathing grew heavier behind her. "Amelia, please." But the girl kept going. "I heard my mom talking one night," she said. "On the phone." Her eyes stayed locked on Salvatore. "She said someone threatened her. Said if she told you, they'd say she was stealing. Or call immigration." Salvatore's expression darkened. "Who?" he asked, his voice low. Amelia didn't hesitate. The man in the black suit. Gray hair. He stands by your back door. The name hit him instantly. Victor. For a second, Salvatore didn't react. But inside, something snapped. Years of trust. Gone. In a heartbeat. Amelia continued, her voice steady. We've been here for 97 nights. Salvatore blinked. What? I count, she said simply. Every night before I sleep, I make a mark. 97. 97 nights under this bridge. 97 nights of cold, hunger, fear. Salvatore felt it. All of it. Every second. Amelia pushed the receipts closer to him. You can check, she said. It's all there. He reached out, slowly, picked them up. His fingers tightened slightly around the paper. Proof. Clean. Clear. Undeniable. For a moment, no one spoke. Then suddenly, a violent cough broke the silence. Lucas. His body jerked forward, the sound tearing through him. Another cough. And another. Harder. Faster. He struggled to breathe. His small hands reached for his chest. His lips, turning pale. Elena, Salvatore started. But she was already moving. She dropped beside him, pulling him into her arms. Lucas, baby, breathe, please breathe. Her voice cracked with fear. But the boy couldn't respond. His chest heaved. Each breath, weaker than the last. Amelia moved instantly. No panic. No hesitation. She dropped beside him, placing her hand gently on his chest. Slow, breathe slow, she whispered. Like I showed you. Her movements were precise. Practiced. Like she had done this before. Too many times. Salvatore pulled out his phone. Dr. Webb, he said quickly when the call connected. I need you now. He gave the location. Ended the call. Elena looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. No, she said, shaking her head. You can't call anyone here. He needs help, Salvatore said firmly. They'll take them away, she cried. If they see this, they'll take my children. Her voice broke completely. I can't lose them. I can't. Salvatore stepped closer. He crouched in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. No one is taking your children, he said. His voice was calm, steady, certain. I won't let that happen. Elena stared at him, searching, desperate to believe. Behind her, Lucas's breathing slowly began to ease under Amelia's guidance. The worst of it passed, but the fear stayed. The silence that followed felt heavy, fragile. Salvatore took off his jacket. Without thinking, he wrapped it around Lucas's shoulders. The boy sank into it, trembling slightly, but calmer now. Warm. For the first time in who knew how long. Elena watched, speechless. And in that moment, something shifted. Not just for her. Not just for the children. But for Salvatore. Because standing there, under that bridge, looking at everything he had failed to see, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't walking away from this. But what he was about to do next would change all of their lives forever. Dr. Webb's car pulled up under the bridge not long after. The headlights cut through the darkness, spilling pale light across the broken ground. He stepped out quickly, his coat pulled tight against the cold, his medical bag already in hand. He didn't ask questions, didn't react to where he was. He just walked straight in and dropped to his knees beside Lucas. Let me see him, he said calmly. Elena hesitated for half a second, then carefully eased her son into the doctor's hands. Lucas was still breathing hard, his chest rising unevenly, small gasps slipping between each breath. Dr. Webb listened to his chest, his expression tightening just slightly. Then he reached into his bag, pulling out a small inhaler and a few other supplies. "Easy, easy," he murmured, guiding Lucas through each breath. Amelia stayed close, her hand still resting gently on her brother's shoulder. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. Slowly, the wheezing softened. The sharp panic in Lucas's eyes faded into exhaustion. His breathing steadied. Not perfect, but better. Dr. Webb sat back slightly, exhaling under his breath. "He's been having attacks like this for a while," he said quietly, glancing at Salvatore. It wasn't a question. Salvatore nodded once. The doctor looked back at Elena. "He needs consistent treatment. Medication. Warm air. Proper rest." Elena lowered her gaze. "I know," she whispered. But knowing wasn't enough. Out here, nothing was enough. Dr. Webb stood up slowly, brushing his hands together. "If he stays in this environment," he continued carefully, "his lungs won't hold up much longer." The words hung heavy in the air. No one argued, because everyone already knew. Salvatore looked around. At the cardboard shelter. At the torn blankets. At the baby, still sleeping in that small box. At Amelia, standing there like she was still ready to fight the world if she had to. And then at Elena, a mother who had given everything, and still didn't have enough. He made his decision. "Pack your things," he said. Elena looked up. "What?" "You heard me," Salvatore said, his voice firm but calm. "You're coming with me." The silence that followed felt almost unreal. Elena blinked, like she didn't understand the words. I can't," she said quickly. "I don't belong there." Salvatore shook his head. "You belong somewhere warm," he replied. "And your children belong somewhere safe." Her hands tightened around the baby. "That's not how this works," she whispered. "People like us, we don't just walk into places like yours." Salvatore stepped closer. "Tonight, you do." Elena looked at him. Really looked. Trying to understand what he meant. Trying to see if this was real, or just another moment that would disappear. Amelia spoke before she could. "What's the catch?" Her voice cut through the moment. Sharp. "Careful." Salvatore turned his gaze to her. "No catch." Amelia didn't believe him. It showed in her eyes. "There's always a catch," she said. He held her gaze. "Not this time." A long pause followed. Then slowly, Amelia turned away. Without another word, she walked back into the shelter. Elena watched her, confused. But Salvatore understood. She was packing. Inside, Amelia moved with quiet efficiency. She gathered everything they owned. A few books. A small stack of worn clothes. That plastic bag of receipts, folded carefully and placed at the very top. Nothing was thrown together. Everything had its place. Because when you have nothing, every little thing matters. Elena adjusted the baby in her arms, then reached for Lucas, helping him stand. He leaned slightly into her, still weak but breathing easier. Dr. Webb closed his bag, giving Salvatore a brief look. "You're doing the right thing," he said quietly. Salvatore didn't respond. He wasn't doing it to be right. He was doing it because he couldn't walk away anymore. Amelia came back out. Her arms full. Her expression unchanged. She glanced at Salvatore once, then walked past him. Toward the exit. Like she had already made up her mind. Elena followed slowly. Each step hesitant. Like she was leaving something behind. Even if that something was nothing more than survival. They reached the car. Salvatore opened the door. Lucas climbed in first, his eyes wide as he looked around the interior. Sophia stirred slightly in Elena's arms but didn't wake. Amelia slid into her seat quietly, placing the bag on her lap, her hands resting on top of it like she was guarding it. Elena stood outside for a second. Just 1 second. Looking back. At the bridge. At the place that had nearly broken her, and somehow kept her alive. Then she got in. The door closed. The engine started. And the car pulled away. The drive was quiet. No one spoke. Lucas stared out the window, watching the world pass by. Streetlights. Buildings. People. Things that felt distant, unreal. Sophia slept peacefully, wrapped in warmth for the first time in what felt like forever. Elena sat still. Her eyes forward. Her hands holding her child just a little tighter. And Amelia. She didn't look outside. Didn't react. She just sat there, watching everything without showing anything. Waiting. Still waiting. Salvatore drove. Block after block, the city slowly changing again. The broken streets faded. The buildings grew cleaner, brighter, warmer, until finally, they arrived. The mansion stood ahead. Large, quiet, unfamiliar. The car stopped. No one moved. Salvatore stepped out first. Walked around. Opened the door. "Come on," he said softly. Lucas stepped out slowly, his small feet touching clean pavement. He looked around, amazed. Elena followed. Then Amelia. She stepped out last. Her eyes scanned everything instantly. Doors, windows, distances. Like she was mapping it all in her head. Not for comfort. For safety. Salvatore led them toward the entrance. Elena hesitated when they reached the front door. Her steps slowed. Almost stopped. For 2 years, she had only used the back. This door wasn't meant for her. Salvatore noticed. And gently, he reached for the handle. Opened it. Then looked at her. "Not tonight," he said quietly. Elena swallowed. Her feet moved, slowly crossing the threshold. And in that moment, everything changed. But not everyone felt it the same way. Because as they stepped inside, Amelia remained still for just a second longer. Standing at the doorway, looking in. Not at the beauty. Not at the warmth. But at something else. Something deeper. Something she hadn't said yet. And then quietly, almost under her breath, she whispered, "Let's see how long this lasts." The door closed softly behind them. The warmth hit immediately. Not just the heat from the house, but something else. Something quiet. Something unfamiliar. Lucas took a few small steps forward, his eyes wide as he looked around. The floors were spotless. The lights soft. Everything felt untouched. Like a place that didn't belong to people like him. He reached out slowly and touched the edge of a table, like he needed to make sure it was real. Elena stood near the entrance, still holding Sophia, her body tense, unsure where to move, what to do. Her instincts pulled her one way. Toward the back. Toward the place she had always been allowed to exist. But Salvatore's voice stopped her. "This way." He didn't raise it. Didn't command. Just guided. And she followed. Step by step. Careful. Like every movement mattered. Amelia walked last. Quiet. Watching everything. Not impressed. Not comforted. Just aware. They passed through the living room, where the soft glow of lamps made everything feel calm. Almost too calm. Then into a smaller section of the house. Guest rooms. Prepared. Clean. Ready. Salvatore stopped at the doorway and stepped aside. "You can stay here," he said. Elena looked inside. A bed. A real bed. Soft blankets. Pillows. Clean sheets. For a moment, she didn't move. Like her body didn't know how to react. Lucas stepped in first. He walked slowly toward the bed, then pressed his hand down on it. It sank. Soft. His eyes widened. "Mama," he whispered, his voice filled with quiet wonder. "It's soft." The words broke something inside Elena. She stepped in quickly, placing Sophia down gently on the bed. The baby stirred slightly, then settled again, her tiny body relaxing into the warmth. Amelia stayed near the door, still, unmoving, her arms crossed tightly. Salvatore noticed. "You don't have to stand there," he said. Amelia didn't respond. Her eyes moved around the room. Doors, windows, corners. Still calculating. Still preparing. A knock came from behind. The housekeeper stepped in quietly, placing folded towels and clothes on a nearby chair. No questions. No looks. Just a small nod, then she left. Elena stared at the clothes. Clean. Warm. Too clean. Like they didn't belong to her. "You can use them," Salvatore said. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out. "Thank you," she whispered. Lucas was already climbing onto the bed, careful at first, then sinking deeper into it. A small smile appeared on his face. The first real one. Not forced. Not tired. Just a child smiling. Sophia let out a soft sound in her sleep, shifting closer to the warmth. Elena watched them. Her eyes filled. But she held it back. Because she wasn't sure yet. Not fully. Not safely. Salvatore turned slightly, about to leave, but then he paused. He looked at Amelia. She hadn't moved. "Come on," he said gently. "You can rest." Amelia shook her head. "I'm fine." Her voice was flat. Closed. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right." And he left. The door closed quietly behind him. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Lucas lay down fully, pulling the blanket over himself. His body relaxed instantly, like it had been waiting for this moment his whole life. "Mama," he murmured, his eyes already closing. "It's warm." Elena sat beside him, brushing his hair softly. "I know, baby." Her voice cracked just a little. Sophia shifted again, her tiny fingers curling against the fabric of the blanket. Peace. Real peace. Something they hadn't felt in a long time. But not everyone felt it. Amelia walked slowly around the room. She touched nothing. Just observed. Then she moved toward the window. Looked outside. Then back inside. Still quiet. Still guarded. "Elena," she said softly. Her mother turned. Amelia lowered her voice. "Don't trust it." The words were calm. Not harsh. Just certain. Elena's expression softened. "Amelia." "I'm serious," she continued. "Things don't just change like this." Elena stood up slowly and walked toward her. She placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I know it's hard to believe," she said. "But maybe, just maybe, this is different." Amelia looked at her. Really looked. "You believed that before," she said quietly. Elena froze. Just for a second. Because she knew what she meant. And Amelia didn't need to say more. Silence filled the space between them. Heavy. Honest. Lucas shifted slightly in the bed, letting out a soft sigh. That small sound pulled Elena back. She turned, looked at her children. All three of them. Safe. Warm. Together. Her eyes softened again. "I'm going to believe this," she said gently. "Even if it's just for tonight." Amelia didn't respond. She just looked away, back toward the window. Time passed slowly. Minutes, then more. The house grew quiet, deeper into the night. Lucas fell fully asleep. Sophia didn't wake once. Elena sat beside them, watching, like she was afraid it might disappear if she closed her eyes. And Amelia. She stayed awake, still by the window, still watching. Hours later, the house was completely silent. Even Salvatore couldn't sleep. He stood in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. His mind wouldn't settle. Not after what he had seen. Not after what he had learned. He turned slightly, and stopped. Amelia. She stood near the doorway, quiet, watching him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she stepped forward. Slow. Careful. You're not asleep either, she said. Salvatore shook his head. No. She walked further in. Her footsteps soft against the floor. Why are you helping us? She asked. Straight to the point. No hesitation. Salvatore looked at her, then down at the glass in his hand, then back at her again. Because I should have sooner. Amelia didn't look convinced. That's not a reason, she said. It is for me. She studied him again. Longer this time. You didn't even know we existed, she said. He didn't argue. Because she was right. I know now, he said quietly. Amelia tilted her head slightly. Still thinking. Still questioning. Still not trusting. And then, she asked something that made the air shift again. If we didn't almost lose Lucas tonight. Her voice softened just a little. Would you still have come? Salvatore didn't answer right away. Because the truth wasn't simple. And the silence that followed said more than words ever could. The silence between them stretched, quiet, honest, heavy with truth. Salvatore looked at her, and for once, he didn't hide behind power or pride or control. No, he said finally. Amelia didn't flinch. She didn't look surprised. She just nodded slightly, like she already knew. I didn't see it, he continued, his voice low. I didn't want to see it. I had everything, and I never thought to ask what someone else didn't have. Amelia's eyes stayed on him. Careful. Listening. But tonight, he said, I saw you. Not just her. All of them. The truth. And there was no looking away anymore. Amelia held his gaze for a long moment. Then slowly, something in her expression softened. Just a little. Not trust. Not yet. But something close to understanding. You're late, she said quietly. Salvatore nodded. I know. And for the first time, that was enough. Morning came softly. Light filtered through the windows, warm and steady, like the world had decided to give them a second chance. Lucas woke up first. No coughing. No panic. Just quiet breathing. He blinked, looking around the room, then slowly sat up. For a second, he forgot where he was. Then he smiled. A real smile. Mama, he whispered. Elena opened her eyes instantly. She had barely slept. She moved closer, brushing his hair gently. You're okay? She asked. Lucas nodded. I didn't wake up coughing, he said, almost surprised. Elena's lips trembled. She pulled him close, holding him tight. You're safe, she whispered. Across the room, Sophia stirred, letting out a soft sound before settling again. Amelia stood near the window. Still awake. Still watching. But something had changed. Not in the room. In her. Later that morning, the house felt different. Not just quiet, but alive. Bella ran into the room, her small footsteps quick and excited. "Elena!" she called out, stopping when she saw the others. Her eyes widened. "Babies!" she said with a big grin. Lucas looked at her, unsure at first. Then Bella walked right up to him like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Do you want to play?" she asked. Simple. Honest. Lucas hesitated, then nodded. And just like that, something began to heal. Elena watched them, her eyes full. Salvatore stood nearby, silent, observing, learning. For the first time, his home didn't feel empty. It felt human, real. But there was still something left unfinished. He turned. "Amelia," he said. She looked at him. "Come with me." She hesitated, then followed. They walked into his office, the same place where decisions were made, where power lived. But today, it felt different. On the desk, papers were laid out. The receipts. The proof. Amelia's eyes flickered to them instantly. Salvatore stepped forward. "This ends today," he said. She didn't speak, but she listened. A few minutes later, Victor stood in that same room, confident at first, until he saw the papers, until he saw Amelia. And then, everything changed. Salvatore didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. The truth spoke louder than anything else. "You took from her," he said calmly. Victor tried to explain, tried to twist it, but it didn't matter. The proof was there, clear, undeniable. "4 months," Salvatore said. "You cut her pay, threatened her, and watched her struggle." Victor's face paled. "I was going to fix it." "No," Salvatore said, and that one word ended it. Security escorted Victor out. No second chances. No excuses. Justice. Simple. Final. Amelia stood there, watching it all. Quiet. Still. But this time, her shoulders relaxed. Just a little. When they walked out of the office, Elena was waiting. Her eyes moved between them. Uncertain. "What happened?" she asked. Salvatore looked at her. "He won't be coming back." Elena froze. The weight of it hit her slowly. Then all at once, tears filled her eyes. Not from fear. From release. From something finally being lifted. Amelia stepped closer to her. Took her hand. "You don't have to be scared anymore," she said. Elena broke then. Pulled her daughter close, holding her tightly. For the first time, not out of fear, but out of relief. Days turned into weeks. Things didn't change all at once. They settled. Slowly. Naturally. Elena began to eat regularly. Her hands started to heal. Lucas grew stronger, his breathing steady, his laughter coming back piece by piece. Sophia found her voice. Little sounds at first. Then giggles. Then words. And Amelia. She changed the slowest. But she did change. One afternoon, Salvatore found her sitting on the steps outside. Quiet. Watching the sky. He sat beside her. Neither of them spoke at first. Then she looked at him. "You kept your word," she said. He nodded. "I said I would." She looked forward again. "I didn't believe you," she admitted. "I know." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I think I do now." Salvatore smiled slightly. Not big. Just enough. And then she did something small. Something simple. She slipped her hand into his. Just for a second. But it meant everything. Because for a child who had nothing, trust was the hardest thing to give. And the most powerful. Salvatore looked at her, then at the house behind them. All the wealth. All the power. And yet, None of it had ever felt as important as this. Because in the end, it wasn't money that saved them. It wasn't power. It was a choice. A moment. A decision to see someone and not look away. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change a life. Or save one. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing, and tell me in the comments which part of the world you're watching from.